So first, after we successfully log in, there will be a display menu with several options, such as checking balance, withdrawing money, depositing money, and many more. So, we choose option 2, which is withdraw money. So, the program asks the user account number and the amount they want to withdraw. From this, we want to withdraw 400 and then the current balance is 3000 and it calculates the new balance which becomes 2600 after withdrawal. After that, the withdrawal was successful. Insert withdrawal amount more than account balance. For example, account balance for account 1 is 5000 but we insert 5100. There will be an error and display insufficient balance.
This flowchart outlines the process of entering a withdrawal amount. It starts with enter withdrawal amount, prompting the user to input an amount. The system checks if the amount is not 1 or less than or equal to 0. If true, it displays error, invalid input and ends. If false, it processes successfully. This flowchart shows the process for checking the current balance. Starting with check current balance, it verifies if the withdrawal amount exceeds the account balance. If true, it displays error insufficient balance and ends. If false, the process continues successfully.
This flowchart shows how the ATM checks if it has enough cash for a withdrawal. If the user asks for more money than the ATM has, it shows an error message and stops the process. If the ATM has enough money, the process continues. The flowchart shows a process where money is given out and the balance is updated. It starts with a command to dispense money, then shows a message confirming the money was dispensed and the balance is updated, and it finally ends. The ATM withdrawal process begins with the user entering their account number. If the input is invalid, the system displays an error message, invalid input, and ends. If valid, the system checks the account balance. Account type 1 has a balance of 5000 and account type 2 has a balance of 3000. If the account does not exist, the system displays an error message, account does not exist, and ends.
The process then proceeds to enter withdrawal amount and verifies two conditions. First, if the withdrawal amount exceeds the current balance, the system displays error insufficient balance and fail. Second, if the ATM vault cannot fulfill the amount, it displays error insufficient ATM vault balance and fail. If both conditions are met, the system dispenses the money, display withdrawal successful, and ends at withdrawal success.
So firstly, we put our card number into ATM banking system to get access and then put a PIN. And then we choose number 3 for deposit money. And then we put the amount of the token for every single type of token with 10 ringgit, 20 ringgit, 50 ringgit and 100 ringgit that we want to put. So the system will calculate how much the money that we put into the tray, and the total will be displayed with 360 ringgit will be added into our account. And the balance of the account will be shown before deposit and after deposit. And then the deposit operation will complete successfully.
Alright, now we're going to look at the flowchart that will explain to you how this system is being executed. Right, moving on. So before we move into the first function, which is the start function that is required to run the whole system of the depositing, we must first learn about the system open tray. The system open tray function is required to ensure the system that the tray itself can open so it can deposit or take in money into the ATM. So now let's move on into the function itself. So first we need to do a condition where if open tray is equal to tray normal, we must output true and it goes to return 1, which says to the system that the ATM is operating as normal. Or else it returns 0 and says to the system that ATM does not operate normally. Alright, let's start with the first function, or the mother of all functions, okay, which is the int start. So firstly, before we start with all of the functions, before we run all of the functions, let's start with defining variables. The variables that I use here is int token 10, int token 20, int token 50, and int token 100. So the reason that we need to define these tokens with the value of 0 or the value of nil is so that the system doesn't misinput the number before the user has already input. Let's say, for example, the user doesn't input any number for token 10. However, the system already has 5 in token 10. So that would be an error. So we do not want that. So we reset the system every time the system operates. That's basically it. Next, we move on to the insert token, which is, it's basically just a way for us to scan how many tokens that the user has inputted into the system or into the ATM. Next on the list is unassigned int current balance equals to 1000. What this is basically the amount of money that the user had in his account or in her account before the transaction or before the deposit. So in this case, we've inserted or we've already inputted it as 1000. Okay, next, deposit money. This is the function that we are trying to tell the user that, okay, now that you've already inserted all of your money, we are going to save all of this transaction into your account so that the account knows that you've already inputted this much money into your account plus the amount that you already have. That's basically it. Next on the flowchart, the system will print deposit operation completed successfully. So this is basically the system's way of trying to tell the user that, okay, we've completed all of that you asked for, and now it's the end of the transaction. You may continue to the main menu. And next, we return deposit success, which allows the user to go back to main menu. And lastly, we end the function. Now that we've explained or we know what the first function is, let's move on to the next function, which is the insert token function that exists within the first function or the mother of all functions. This function is basically the system's way of trying to figure out how many of the tokens that is inserted by the user. So we're going to look at first how many tokens that how many 10 ringgit tokens that the user have inputted. We're going to set it into our system, save it into our system, and so on. This also applies to token 20, token 50, and token 100. And in the end, we will return all of the information that we've gathered. Now, I'm going to explain the next function, which is deposit money function. So, first, we move on to printing and telling the users that account balance before deposit is RM, and we display the user the account balance which prior before we added the deposited money. After that, we try to find the summation of the deposited money and the bank account or the account balance prior to the deposit. So we're trying to find the new balance of the account. After that, we print and we tell the user how much money that they have now after depositing their money. And lastly, we return to the system the amount of money that the user have now in the account, which is the new balance. So this is what basically happens during an ATM transactions for depositing. It's basically the gist of everything that's happening. Although it may not be as accurate as that of a real ATM machine, it's a really clever way of trying to teach everyone or teach people how ATM works by using code. So I hope you guys understand our explanation on what happens during the depositing, and thank you for listening.